Hey everybody, we're back and we are building argument again. So we read and reviewed the tale, which for me was Where the Wild Things Are, and for you it was The Sneetches of the Lorax. We summarized, analyzed, we did our brainstorm last lesson, and today we are focusing on building thesis part one. So let's just do some review. We have our brainstorm. We're going to need this today, so make sure you have yours out because we're going to be using this to build our thesis. And we also have our summary and analysis, so you want to have this on hand. Um, but earlier in the year, we went over a Toulmin's model thesis statement. So let me just go over that with you. Okay. So in a Toulmin's model thesis statement, you have your claim, which is your overarching point, your grounds, which are your reasons or evidence the above claim is true, and your warrant, which is the importance, the connection between the grounds and the claim. And these are like very abstract definitions, and it's kind of difficult to understand um, what they mean just by reading the definitions. So let's take a look at a step-by-step process of how to get these things accomplished. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use our brainstorm to find our claim. So we're going to take a look at our brainstorm. And all of these general ideas that I have in orange are going to be my claim options. So I have imagination, I have language, I have independence, I have love, I have time, and I have childhood. Sorry. I recommend using these just for starters, because a claim is a general point that we're making, that these things are present in the novel in some sort of way. Um, the next thing I'm going to be doing is once I pick an option, I'm going to answer the question, why does the author explore this in the story? This will start your understanding of the warrant. So we're actually going to go out of order. We're going to go claim, then we're going to find um, the warrant, and then we're going to find the grounds. So the third thing, and this is just what I'm doing. If you'd like to switch these, you can. But the third thing we're doing is we're going to try to compartmentalize the above. We're going to ask these questions: how, where, when, and or who does the author focus on when exploring this claim? So these are the grounds. Um, so let's get started. So I'm going to go back to my brainstorm and I'm going to focus on time, language, and love. And why am I picking those? Because these are the ones that I'm most comfortable with um, in the story. Don't pick something that you don't like really have an interest in or something that you're uncomfortable with because it's not going to help you write about it. So let's start with time. Okay. So what is the claim? And I'm not going to write a complete sentence because this is kind of like a brainstorm. So I'm going to use the author's name, Sendak. You guys would use Seuss. And I'm going to say Sendak's unrealistic use of time. And then I'm going to leave a space for the grounds. And then I'm going to go to the warrant. So for me, why does he, and I'm just going to be talking this through in my head, like, why is his use of time so unrealistic? And for me, I always think of childhood as um, kids are just beginning to get a sense of what is time. And a lot of time we don't know how long something is or how quick something is because everything is so new to us. Um, my son keeps saying the word yesterday, and he'll say things like, yesterday when this happened, but it really was like 6 months ago. So he doesn't have an idea of if something happened like, yesterday or 5 days ago or 6 months ago because he's only 3.5 years old. So a child like Max, he doesn't have perspective yet. So for me, this unrealistic use of time represents that's an L, the fleeting nature of childhood. And sorry guys, I'm left-handed. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to ask myself is, and just to go back to the list, is I'm going to compartmentalize this. How, where, when, or who does this happen to? So there's not a lot of characters in the story. I mean, I think there's like probably two main characters, Max, his mom, and then all the wild things. So who is probably not the best option for this. Um, so how does this happen? Yeah, maybe I could do that um, because it happens when he's going to his room, when he's exploring things, when he's traveling on the boat. Where does it happen? It happens in two different places: his room, and then the island. And when does this happen? So I'm going to focus on when does this happen. So his unrealistic use of time is one, Max's trip to the island. If you remember, it's using things like in and out of a year, uh, over many months, um, and it's very quick. Even though we know it's happening in a very short amount of time because he's either dreaming or he's just getting lost in his imagination. Um, so then while he's on the island, um, time goes pretty quickly. So his time spent with wild things. And then time also exists during his return home. And most classic high school papers are 5 paragraphs, which are an introduction, a conclusion, and 3 body paragraphs. So here you have your 3 body paragraphs right here. So what I would be doing when I wrote these body paragraphs, if I was writing body paragraph 1, I'd be exploring how Sendek's unrealistic use of time is present during his trip to the island, which represents the fleeting nature of adulthood, of childhood. And I wouldn't be exploring these two things. So I'm moving from I'm starting with a general point, then I'm getting very specific with these 3 different things, and then I'm kind of taking a step back and I'm looking at it from a landscape view, and I'm saying, what what does this warrant? Why is this important? Because it represents the fleeting nature of childhood. So I'm going to do it again with language. So that's going to be my next point. Cool. So I'm going to start with my claim. And based on my brainstorm, I noticed that there was violent language present in the story. So my claim is just going to be the violent language present in the story. And some of you guys might be saying, Mr. Carl, you're not really making a claim there. You're just like saying something. Um, I'm writing a rough draft of my thesis, so I might add something to this at the end, or I might put something before it. But this is the topic. This is what the basis of my writing is going to be about. Um, So when we get to part 2, I can show you how this might change. So again, now I'm going to leave a space for the grounds, and I'm going to write the warrant. Okay, so I'm going to stay with this childhood importance, but I'm going to change it to match the connection to the claim. So I'm going to say that the violent language present in the story mirrors the turbulent nature of childhood. Cool. Okay, so when do we see this violent language? Well, and I'm going to stick with this when, because that's something that I feel comfortable with doing. And I would recommend for you guys, if a story is told in chronological time, you should use when. But that being said, the Sneetches and the Lorax, who, what, and where might be better as well. So leave yourself open. But I'm going to stick with when, and I'm going to say we see violent language during his behavior, Max's behavior, to his mother, to the description of the creature's behavior, and 3, during Max's taming of the creatures. It also happens at the end when he's leaving the island. So there I used, now I have time, language. I'm moving from a general point to more specific, and then kind of like a landscape reflection of why, what is the connection between these two things? Well, it mirrors the turbulent nature of childhood. And then we'll do one more. So talk about love. We have our claim. Max's mother's unconditional love. So she scolds him in the beginning. So even though when you're younger, you might not think that that's love, it is. So her scolding of him, she sends him to his room. And then we see, I can explore his escape, because that's a reaction to her love. His escape to the island. We'll put that in parentheses because it's kind of sarcastic. To the island. So I might want to explore that. And now I'm actually not focusing on when, but I'm focusing on what. And then the last part is the food. The food at the end of the story, waiting for him. Still hot. Okay. W. Actually, I went a little out of order, but that's okay, guys. If you feel comfortable, answering your grounds first and then to your warrant, that's okay too. So what? Why is this? What is warranted here? Well, I'll stick with the childhood theme, and I'll call it. It represents the confusing nature of childhood. And a lot of times when you're a kid, you don't realize that all the things your parents do for you that you might not like are actually for your benefit, and it's actually out of love that they do those things. But we don't understand that because you need perspective. You don't. A lot of times you don't. Those questions aren't